So my question is, who's your mic? Every entrepreneur either has a mic, has had, or will have a mic. The only way to avoid it is simply to not grow.
Why do growing businesses go broke? Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast. I'm Rocky Lalvani, and I help 7- and 8-figure business owners scale profits and cash flow while working less. Every week, we dig into proven methods like the Profit First system, other cash flow strategies, and real execution. No accounting jargon, no fluff. If you're going to be the backbone of America, creating jobs and serving your mission, you deserve to be well rewarded. We're Profit First certified professionals. If you want the masterclass, check out episodes 2 through 13, including Mike Michalowicz, where I break down the entire Profit First book, chapter by chapter. If you want, grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint book at profitcomesfirst.com and start making profit a habit today. You built this business to serve your mission and your freedom. Let's make sure it pays you back. We also offer strategic tax planning and preparation to help you keep more of that profit. Now let's dive in. Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man. Let me ask you a question, and this might sting. Do you have someone on your team who's been with you forever? Maybe they work hard, maybe they don't. Maybe they care, maybe they don't. Maybe you trust them, maybe you don't. But you also know they're quietly becoming the ceiling in your business. They're the person you need to let go of, and you haven't. That's the mic problem. That teammate who helped you at some point, but can't help you today, or is holding you back from being what you want. And you're delaying that conversation because it's tough. And let's face it, none of us want to have tough conversations. That's our guest today, Kurt Wilkin. Kurt's lived from every angle. He's grown, scaled, and exited high-growth companies, which have been acquired. He's also sold his recent company, HireBetter, and he's worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs, CEOs on the people side of growth. He started his career at Ernst & Young. He's a CPA, and hear how he talks about that. It's interesting. And he's also an active member of YPO. He can talk culture, leadership, and talent, and the real world of being in the trenches just like you and helping you to achieve the results you want. We're going to hit some hard-hitting truths today and how to find your mic and how to do something about it. Let's meet Kurt. Let's get started. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Kurt Wilkin. It's great to have you join us today.
Rocky, I'm so excited to be here, and I love what you're doing.
And I'm excited for the conversation. Can you share a little bit about yourself and I guess your past business?
Well, let's see where to start. So I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and my most recent business was called HireBetter, which was a recruiting firm that helped entrepreneurs build next level teams. And we partnered a lot with EOS. I know you've got a lot of EOS in your audience. So we partnered a lot with those folks as they tried to grow their business. We handled the people side. Before that, I grew a finance and accounting consulting firm to about 120 employees and sold it. And before that, I was a very bad accountant and CPA for Ernst & Young. So there's a little bit of my background.
You know, it's funny. That's the one part of business most owners struggle with, the accounting and finance. But I'm assuming you did well with it, at least, because you came from the background.
You know, that would be a safe assumption, but it's not a true assumption. So I can get my way through it, but I don't like it at all. And I had good partners that were very good at that. And I happen to gravitate towards other sides of the business, sales, marketing, and strategy.
Why do you think so many business owners struggle with the accounting finance side?
Because most entrepreneurs are not accounting and finance folks. And so they become an entrepreneur because they have a vision or a dream or an interest in something, whether it's cooking or architecture or, you name it, whatever your business is. And most people don't like the finance and accounting side. That's why it's very good to partner with somebody who's really good at that.
And that is the key. It's one of those things you can't ignore. So we're here to talk about your book, amongst other things, Who's Your Mike? And I love this because it's a problem that I see with a lot of my clients. And there was a line at the beginning that really kind of hit me. It said, you built a lifestyle business for everyone on the team, but you. And it's funny because, you know EOS and scorecards. I'm like, yeah, you built an EOS scorecard and everyone hit their EOS goals. And you didn't have any profit and cash flow to show for it.
Yeah.
Because things aren't aligned. So Who's Your Mike all about, really?
Well, I'll tell you about the book, and then I'll come back to that line because it was a very powerful line. So Who's Your Mike is I've worked over the last 30 years with a lot of entrepreneurs trying to build and grow their business. In the last 15 in the recruiting space. So I've seen the movie several times from different angles. And what I saw over and over again was this idea that you've got very people on your team that are really key contributors until they're not. And you outgrow many members of your team, whether for good, like they can't have another role in the organization, or at least in their role. So, for example, Mike is your buddy that you basically started your business with. And to your point, Mike was your accounting and finance and operations and at the integrator for the, in the EOS world, and did all the things you didn't like to do, such as open the LLC and do the accounting, order office supplies, whatever, while you had the vision for the business. But as you grew, Mike's role grew. He went from your bookkeeper to your accountant to your controller to ultimately your CFO. And he's a very loyal employee. He's working 100 hours a week to make things work. But you look up one day and you're now a $10 million business, and you're trying to negotiate a line of credit with the bank, maybe a merger agreement with your biggest competitor, and Mike is in over his head. He's swirling, doesn't know what he's doing, but he's so loyal to you. But you look up and you realize, man, Mike is just so far in over his head. So my question is, who's your Mike? Every entrepreneur either has a Mike, has had, or will have a Mike. The only way to avoid it is simply to not grow. So that's the lead character. And then every chapter is a different archetype, a different type of employee that you, either a legacy employee that maybe needs to be reassigned, or maybe somebody you bring in from the outside to try to save the world. And that the book is a lot of different stories that all entrepreneurs, even the dumb fifth grader like me that wrote it, can get their arms around and understand.
So here's the question. Why do we wait so long to do the hard things of getting them out of that position? I can't tell you how often I've had emotional calls with business owners, and yet they go right up to the edge and then they won't rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, I think because most entrepreneurs are people-oriented folks, and they see the best in them, and they don't like having those hard conversations. And oftentimes we're not very good at managing people either. So we really need that integrator to make some of those, have some of those relationships for us. But it's hard. It just is hard for everybody. Here's a good story that I think Doug Tatum shared one time. He said, guys, imagine your best friend from elementary school. You grew up together, you rode your bikes, you chased girls, whatever. You graduate high school and you look up one day and you say, you know what, Mike, you're no longer my friend. You're fired. And that's how a lot of these entrepreneurs have to deal with long-term employees. That is the case. Sometimes it's not as challenging because you haven't been with them for 10 years, but oftentimes it is.
So what do you tell them? How do we get them to take action? And do you have to fire them?
You don't have to fire them. And that's in my book. I lay out several different scenarios. It depends a lot on Mike's demeanor and how he or she, what other benefits they might have to the organization, how big their ego is, how willing they are to be part of the team, but maybe not a key part of the team, and then having honest conversations. If Mike is truly swirling in over his head as much as we think he is, he's going to be very appreciative of the conversation. And he's not going to want to continue to be the CFO. He wants to be an individual contributor, or maybe move on to something else if that's what you determine. But there's a lot of strong legacy employees that maybe have a place on the team, maybe not as much as you're compensating them, but definitely not in that leadership role anymore. There's so many reasons why. Some of them are, it's hard to attract somebody to be part of Mike's team if Mike's a C player. How are you going to attract an A player in your accounting group if you have a C player running it? So there's all kinds of reasons you need to make a move.
And that makes sense. It amazes me how many people will go up to the owner afterwards and go, "Why did it take you so long? Thank God you finally did that." And I'm always like, "Why didn't you speak up sooner?" But people won't.
That aggravated me as the CEO. People wouldn't be honest with me, and I'm just a regular dude. Just come and talk to me like I'm a regular person. Like, Kurt, we can't. You've got the CEO title, which that probably meant I didn't have the right team. Goes back to your quote about having a team of that had a nice lifestyle business for themselves.
It's not unusual. And so I guess that really comes down to culture, right? That's what you're basically saying. You built a team, but you didn't create the culture, or you didn't hire to the culture. I mean, you were in that whole business. How do we find and bring in the right people? And in today's world of AI resumes and everything else, how do we make sure it's real?
Yeah, well, so just I've been very honest in my book about the HireBetter journey. We had some struggles, and obviously we had some successes. And then my previous business, we had probably more successes there. But I liken it to a sports team. A lot of your entrepreneurs are sports enthusiasts, or maybe they grew up in the sports world, and you've got people with key roles, but they're all fighting for a common good, and they're all. You don't have to tell somebody what to do; they know what to do, and they're going to make it happen. And that's really the culture you're trying to build, is a team of winning and all the other attributes you'd want in a strong culture. The question about AI is totally different topic. So let's keep on culture and finish this topic before we jump, if you want.
No, that's fine. And what I meant by AI is when you go to recruit people, they're creating their resumes to look beautiful and tell right stories. It doesn't mean they. How do you figure out the truth about a person you want to bring on board?
Yeah, it's funny. So we've been in the people business, and we're very HireBetter historically was very people oriented. We had some technology that we leveraged, but we did not rely solely on technology like a lot of recruiters want you to believe you can. And so I think different. I think you need that people aspect. You need to be able to ask the right questions. You need to be able to have them tell you stories of what they've done in the past and basically prove it to you. So I would highly encourage your listeners to take their time. And it's super easy to hit that easy button, and some AI bot told me to hire this person and do it. But you're setting yourself up for just challenging conversations and another firing down the road. So it doesn't mean you can't leverage AI, but I would not rely on AI.
No, and I think I meant it the other way, that the person who's applying for the job has polished their resume to look good. I see it a lot with salespeople. They are wonderful at selling themselves to the company. And I think you even talk about it in the book, but when it actually comes to selling, it's a whole different world.
Yeah. Yeah. That one of my most popular characters, his name is Pipeline Paul, and he comes in and promises the world to the entrepreneur, and you want to believe him. And you look back at his resume after you finally fired him, and you realize, man, he's got a lot of 18-month stints on his resume, which usually is red flag number one. They stuck around long enough to get past a year, and then they were still hopeful that was going to happen, and finally they just gave up on Paul.
So is that what you look at? Timing? Like, how do you tell whether Paul's real or not?
Yeah, the sales are the toughest ones. Even in a business like ours, where you were paying us a lot of money to help you recruit, we have a better chance, but it's still not 90-10 or something like that. Sales in particular. Most of the other roles you can determine. You've got lots of good case studies and questionnaires you can ask, and we do a lot of backdoor references. But with sales, besides the backdoor reference, it's harder. No question. Because you're right. If they're a good salesperson, they're going to sell themselves to you. That doesn't necessarily mean they can sell your widget. And maybe that's the thing I would really encourage you to do, is have they sold something similar? Don't expect somebody who's sold, consulting services to come in and be your strong semiconductor chip salesperson. In other words, I want them to be in a similar type of industry that they've sold like something like this before. Or at least maybe not industry, but same type of product or service.
No, and that makes sense. I find a lot of times, especially on the smaller side of the business, and smaller, I mean, even with a few million in revenue, they haven't necessarily built a good sales system. And the owner's tired of doing the sales. And so they want to put a salesperson in, hoping it solves their problem. But if they haven't built a sales system to hand that salesperson, the person doesn't know what they're selling and they can't do that for them. I don't know what you found.
I talk about that a lot in the book, actually, because you as an entrepreneur are able to sell because you're the face and you understand everything about your business, and it's easier for you to sell. And you hire a salesperson and you expect them to be able to sell the same way, and it just simply doesn't work. They're not able to replicate you. The best success I've had is for smaller businesses, is somebody that's come up through the organization that maybe is not a classic salesperson, but they're working with your customers and clients a lot, and you're able to, join at the hip for a while to sell and ultimately turn it over to them. That's where I've had the most success personally and with a lot of clients at that early stage. Because what you need a strategist who can come in and create your sales process and all the systems and process and structure that you need. But that's hard to do as a small business who doesn't have $250,000 to throw out there, and you might not be able to attract, the best salesperson if you've got a $2 million business. It's a tricky wicket for sure, Rocky.
No, you are correct. It's a difficult situation in all of those and figuring it out. And then the second thing is how to make sure you're measuring them appropriately and so forth. If you're the one doing the sales, you haven't built sales metrics, you haven't built a reporting mechanism. And if you let it go in the beginning, it is almost impossible to get it back on track 6 to 12 months later.
Yeah, you're exactly right. As an entrepreneur, unless you're systems oriented, you probably aren't bringing a lot of those systems and structure with you. So you either need to perhaps hire a consultant that can help you build those, or find the right integrator, maybe a fractional integrator, maybe even a peer to bring in to at least get things set up.
And we're going to talk about that in a moment, because you do talk about that in the book as well with regards to doing that. Now, I guess it's probably true for a lot of positions. You talked about the traditional salesperson in our ever-changing world of kind of how sales is done, how marketing is done, how it's harder to attribute than ever. Is the non-traditional salesperson maybe a better idea? And the reason I say that is, if the non-traditional salesperson wants to actually solve the customer's problem, they're going to be a better salesperson, but they're not the tradition.
Yeah, I personally love that. That's really who I am. I call it business development versus sales. I'm here to solve your challenge. And your challenge may not be something that I can solve. And so I've actually built a very vast network of people I can refer you to that can solve your problem, which I think people appreciate, that I'm not trying to squeeze you into whatever service I have. And I think most non-traditional, or not most, but many non-traditional sales folks who come from maybe a client service or customer service background feel the same. They're here to solve your challenge. And to me, those are the best salespeople. They're not going to cold call 1,000 people, which is what a lot of people think of with the classic salesperson. But I didn't need that. We had a vast network. We do shows like this, and people would call us. And so we just turned it over to the customer service type of folks who would help solve your challenge. I think a lot of small businesses could probably do the same thing. They don't need to pound the street, make 1,000 calls, especially if they have something that it requires more of a nuanced sale.
Do people still pound the street and make sales calls? Honestly, my first job, I walked into office buildings, knocking on doors. Today, everything's locked up tight. Back then, you could walk in the front door.
That's funny you said that. So yes, I think you're right. I think most of it is, LinkedIn stalking and whatever. But it brings up a funny story. I had on my podcast, which is called Unlocking Moves. I was lucky enough to have my 94-year-old aunt on a few months ago, about a month before she passed. And we were talking about her dad's job in the must have been 20s in Grand Forks, North Dakota. He was in advertising sales for their local newspaper. Every day, he literally had to sell the next day's advertisements. So it wasn't like you sell for a year. every day he's out there. And can you imagine in negative 20-degree weather going out and literally pounding the pavement to make tomorrow's sales? It's got to be one of the tougher roles I've heard of.
It was a different time. Like doors were not locked and you could walk into places and everyone had a receptionist. So there was somebody to talk to that if you could make friends with would get you into the office in the back and get you with the decision maker. And you could do that. In today's world, everyone is so busy and tight. And I don't know if it would go. But the bigger point that I was going to make there is you can break roles down. So if you need somebody to make 100 calls a day, you don't necessarily need somebody in the United States and you don't need somebody in your office. You can 1,000%. Outsource cold calling somewhere else and let that person hand the leads to your non-traditional salesperson. I mean, with automated calendars and everything, all of that stuff is not difficult to do if you just take the time to set it up.
Agree 1,000%.
You talked about bringing in an integrator and hiring that person. I think you called her Next Level Natalie in the book.
Yep.
The question that always comes up, because I know how expensive these people are, how do you afford her?
Yeah. My response is usually, how can you afford not to? I believe that most entrepreneurs have money sitting in the couch cushions they're flittering away. They're wasting money with too many, whether it's something as simple as a software subscription or whether it's something as as personal as human beings. I found with my own business, and I've seen it with thousands of other entrepreneurs, you've got a lot of fat in the system, and the right integrator will come in and not just cut for cut's sake, but cut to help make your business more successful, more efficient, more scalable. And that often means removing some of those people and excess costs out of the systems, and they're going to pay for themselves.
One of the things I have seen is I can look at a P&L and I can look at labor costs and I can know there's inefficiency. I just don't know where it is. And a lot of times these companies are like, oh, we have all these people and we're all very busy and they're all very busy. And when you take the time to peel it back, what you usually find is there is someone in the system who is creating fires that everyone is very busy putting out, that if you got rid of the fire starter, you wouldn't have to firefight. And the whole process would work at a fraction of the people. And that's the key. We just took a business that I kept telling them, you have too many people. And they finally pared down the people and went with a very tight team, hired in some subcontractors to do specific things, and things just took off. And part of it was that no one had the skills to manage all those people. And that takes a lot of cost and effort and mental bandwidth.
It's amazing what you will find when you do hire that next level employee that really has done this before and can get you somewhere, no matter what department. You'll see the difference between what an A player looks like and what a lot of your C players have been for you. I pulled up a great card. I don't know if you're familiar with Lauren Feldman and 21 Hats. He's got a great small business content business, let's call it. And one of his guys is named Jay Goltz. And here's a quote: "Instead of putting out fires, fire the arsonists." I love it. It's exactly what you just said.
And that is the key. And I know in certain lines of work, there is a massive difference between an A player, an A B player, and a C player. I know Bill Gates talks about it when it comes to programming and computer science. He's like, an A player in computer science is 100 or 1,000 fold what a B player is. Because in that business, there is a lot that can make a big difference with that. But even if you look at the speed at which people move, I am always amazed. I've always just naturally moved fast. And there are some people who just naturally move slow. There's nothing wrong with them, but you don't want to put them in a place that needs to move fast because it's just going to hold you up. And if you don't realize that, notice that, or know that, it's kind of brutal.
Yeah.
What are the biggest things in all your experience that you've seen that sometimes make you shake your head and go, why do we keep doing this?
Well, one of them is what you just described. You've got, if everybody's so busy, we're all super busy, then I just a red flag to me. And I know there's something wrong. The other is the legacy employees. There's always, we used to do something we called strategic talent planning, which was to meet with the entrepreneur and a couple of key members of his team and talk through talent planning for growth for the business. And there's usually one or two really super key employees that we had to manage around. And usually it's those long-term key employees like Mike that you have to manage around that are actually part of the problem. And it's hard to see that when you're in it, but once you're past it, it becomes fairly obvious.
What do you do when Mike is your wife's brother? Because that happens.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we had some dabbles at it, but we never pursued it after a couple of bad cases of working with family businesses. Because as soon as you tell somebody they need to fire cousin Johnny, and it doesn't go well. So, that's a great question. That's, I think you need a lot of counseling, and I'm not. It's above my pay grade. I know what they should do. Now, wife's brother is easier than wife. I've seen cases where the wife was the problem, and that's a doozy. Or the husband. Let's just make sure.
Right. No, I get it. Yeah, I usually in the businesses that I've kind of dealt with, it's a lot of times the wife is doing the bookkeeping and the billing and those things. And they're only doing it because you asked them to, not because they wanted to. And so that creates some of the issue. The other issue is when the spouse and the kids have the company credit cards and they all say, oh, but that's a write-off. And you still got to pay for it. Still costly when you have to deal with all of those things.
Yep.
Do you have any secrets on how to get people to take the action they know they should?
It's a great question, and I'm pondering a couple of things that I think have worked in the past. And I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but I think the secret is they've got to come to the answer themselves. I think is the right answer, because no matter how hard you hit them over the head, until they see it for themselves. So let me think about that. Some of the situations I've been around, we ask, having that honest conversation with said employee, have the understanding of where you're going as an organization with the entrepreneur. If you're going to double from $10 to $20 million, for example, you need to make certain changes within the organization. And then for me, what I've done is outline what are the key goals that we need to accomplish, what are the key things we need to do to achieve those goals, and then who's going to do them. And usually when you've got black and white there, that I've got 3 significant gaps in my leadership team to really be able to achieve my objectives, it becomes obvious. Now, does that mean they're going to move on it? I'm not sure about that. But what it does mean is I've got 3 significant gaps. Maybe we don't replace Mike, but we find someone who's going to fill one of those gaps from the outside who is an A player. And then you start shedding light on what Mike is and isn't. And then I think it becomes obvious to everybody. Once it becomes obvious to Mike, that's another plus. But a lot of leaders would tell you to be super direct and just pull the Band-Aid off. And that might be the right approach too, Rocky. You're probably better at that than I am.
Oh, no, I'm very clear. My spreadsheets behave. People don't. There's a reason I do your spreadsheets and not your people. Because it's not my forte. I just know that all these people show up in my spreadsheet. And they show up in lack of margin and excess costs and owner headaches. And so instead of working on how we're going to grow, we're talking about how am I going to deal with so-and-so? And I'm like, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. And I think every time we have ripped the Band-Aid off, they always found somebody so much better, maybe even less expensive, depending on how that pay grade went and so forth. How do you deal with that, by the way? You end up sometimes with a person in the company who keeps asking for more and more money, and the owner's almost afraid to let them go because they think they're a key person. But I think everyone is replaceable, but yet there's that fear.
Yeah, I think that's like the other one you talked about with letting people go with, too soon or not soon enough. There's always going to be somebody who thinks they're worth more than they maybe are, and you just have to determine whether they're worth the headache or not. And to your point, a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to move on it until maybe it's super obvious. I don't have an answer for you on that one.
It's okay. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one without answers.
Hey, look, nobody's got all the answers. If they tell you they've got all the answers, they're full of crap, because every entrepreneur is doing this mostly for the first time. And I want all the entrepreneurs out there to know that you're not alone and don't feel like you've got to have it figured out. That's why you listen to podcasts like this. You work with people like Rocky. I was actually thinking while you were saying that I need a legacy employee users group or support club, so we can all talk about the mics that we've had and the mics that we will have and what we did. That's a great idea.
There you go. And one of the things I have found is if you build the pay structure right to begin with, based on incentives, instead of a guaranteed salary, it at least takes it off of your plate and it puts it on their plate. We were just working on salary structure today, and a lot of my clients it's a utilization issue of, how many client hours have you billed? And when they go to salary, all of a sudden utilization drops. I'm like, listen, let's do a base salary and then we'll just bonus them for utilization rates.
Yeah.
And then it's not a conversation about, I need more money. It's a conversation about, you can have more money, just hit your utilization rates. And so now it's not the owner chasing them. It's, hey, there's the bone. Go figure it out. Don't call me. And when you can shift it from pushing people to letting them pull themselves, I think it just takes it so much easier.
You mentioned something, Rocky, I want to come back to. It sounds like you're in a lot of service business or time and material businesses. One of the best routes that I found for sales and growth was to incentivize that from my client service team. And so we had a fairly complicated, it might not have to be this complicated, but a structure around identifying new clients, which was something, identifying new projects within existing clients was also something. And I also went the extra step and paid a bit of an incentive for just the service team, just to keep the client. Now, a lot of people don't believe in that, but that's what we ended up doing at our previous company, to pretty successful.
And I think those are all great. What I tell people is set the base rate appropriately and make the incentives winnable, but not, and then you can have higher incentives for higher win rates, but at least the incentive for actually doing what they're supposed to is where they're at. But if they don't do what they're supposed to, then they're making 60, 70, 80%. And at least in that case, most people, because they've got their home budget, are going to go find another job on their own. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And they'll self-select out of the program. And so that works too. You've spent a lot of time with EOS, YPO, other things. How have they helped you? What are some of the things you've learned and seen from all of that involvement?
It's a great question. EOS is a system. And so for entrepreneurs who need, which most of us do, some sort of structure within our organization, it's been great. And I was lucky enough to have an integrator. We didn't call him that in my first business. It wasn't even EOS, but I had a strong operating partner. And then with HireBetter, we had a strong integrator as well. So I love what EOS brings to the table. YPO is totally different. So YPO is a professional organization of mostly CEOs and presidents. And What I love about YPO, there's a lot of peer groups now that are out there. But what I like about YPO is it's the only one, to my knowledge, that has a not just professional and not just your own like growth, personal growth, but also your family. There's a family element because as well-rounded leaders, we have to have that element of a strong family life if we're going to be well balanced. So that's what I really loved about YPO, not just at the local level, but there's a lot of things available on the national and international level at YPO as well. Big fan.
Any other groups and things you've been involved with on your entrepreneurial journey that have helped you get ahead?
I think that we all need other folks that are going through life together, whether it's a professional group or just I have a Bible study, for example. I've got a couple of other men's groups. And I think the more we can share our challenges, our successes with other men, in my case, or women in some of your other listeners' case, I think the better, because it's hard to get, it takes a village. And it's hard to go through life on your own.
That is true. And I think being willing to admit what's going wrong, the reality is you find you're not alone. I think most business owners have this weird mentality that nobody else has gone through or dealt with what they've dealt with. And the reality is everyone has who's in your boat.
I can't tell you how many times I've, had the, Kurt, you don't understand. I'm a special snowflake. And the reality is 95% of your challenges are the same things that a lot of other people face. Sure, you've got nuances, but if you're brave enough to admit some of those challenges, you're going to find some good support groups out there.
And I think that's the key. If people would like to learn more about the book, you also have a podcast. How do they do all of that?
Well, they can check out the book at who'syourmike.com. And that was a lot of fun. A lot of good stuff in there. Unlocking Moves is my podcast. We come out, we drop about every other week, and it's usually business leaders and some non-business leaders who I believe that we all have a challenge or something in our life, a decision point that changes the trajectory of our life or our career, and that's what I try to uncover with Unlocking Moves. Had some great folks, the founders of Poppy, the founders of Tecovas. It's been a fun deal. And then Kurt Wilkin at Twitter or LinkedIn is other places. But yeah, I'd love to engage with entrepreneurs. My goal in life is capitalism for good, and how can I support good people building great businesses.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Rocky, thanks for having me, man. I really love the platform and love what you're doing.
Let's face it. We all have a mic in our story. And if we don't have one yet, we're going to have one day. This is an awareness moment. The question is, are you going to do something about it? Loyalty's wonderful. Sometimes we got to make tough decisions. That's why we're the owners. The longer you wait, the more you pay in margin, stress, slowed growth, all of those things. Have the conversation, redesign the role, upgrade the seat, do what you need to, do it respectfully, and let's make it roll. If you enjoyed the conversation and you want Kurt's book, check it out. It's Who's Your Mike? I loved it. I very much enjoyed it. If you know another business owner who's stuck with this too, do me a favor, share the episode with them. Show them a way out as well. One of the things we do for our clients is help them see this and provide the accountability for them to take that difficult step. One of the things we found is every time they've taken it, things actually got a lot better. And they're thankful they made that choice. Tired of scaling and growing beyond your cash? Ready to end the cash flow roller coaster and build real wealth inside and outside your business? We should talk. I serve 7 and 8 figure mission-driven business owners increase their profit and cash flow while working less. We help you build the businesses that run without you, so you work less and make more. Book your discovery call today. There's a link in the show notes. You'll work directly with me as your Chief Profitability Officer. If you're a 6-figure business owner, check out the Profit Blueprint program at ProfitComesFirst.com. It's your guided path to mastering your numbers with my assistance at an affordable investment for your revenue. Check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. It covers leading yourself and building the ultimate life in business. There's also a link in the show notes. Thanks for listening to the podcast, where revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have a profitable week.